According to our Christian Bible, the archons are the rulers, archonton, who Paul said had no eye to see, no ear to hear, and no heart to imagine that Jesus was who he claimed to be. For if they had, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. 1 Corinthians 2 verse 8. They are the chief priests, archiries, and rulers, archontes, who delivered Jesus up to the sentence of death, and they crucified him. Luke 24 verse 20. The ruler, archonta, of the power of the air, the spirit who is now at work in the sons of disobedience. Ephesians 2 verse 2. Beelzebul, the prince, archonti, of the demons. Luke 11 verse 15. The NAA, negative alien agenda. The archons, many people that have done DMT ayahuasca have reported seeing the AI as an octopus-like being controlling this planet. This octopus-like being is giving birth to entities known as the archons. I believe this being to the one referred to as Satan or the devil. Researchers of the archons have stated that the archons are the reptilians and the greys. This is incorrect. The reptilians and the gray clones have become fully possessed and no longer have any free will and are completely living out an archontic agenda and placing us all in an energetic prison to become food for their archon overlords. The archons began to hang out around those beings which were also programmed to survive, and thus they found the ancient races of the reptilians. Because of their genetics, the reptilians came very easily under the archontic influence. After time they possessed the reptilian races and thus they fell in consciousness. The reptilian races have been under the influence and possession of these archontic entities for thousands of years. It seems that the falling of many races within our galaxy have all been caused to one degree or another by this archontic infection. An archontic infection begins by the parasite lowering your vibration to lock you in an astral plane. There you are much more easily influenced and controlled. They can achieve this through many methods. Drugs, alcohol, and pharmaceuticals can be used by the archons to infiltrate the free will of people. In this state, the possessing entity can then drain the energy directly from the solar plexus. Anyone trying to rid themselves of an archontic infection will be brought very quickly to paranoia and anger towards other people. It is reported that meth addicts and heroin users often see these archontic parasites as demons around them. What are they? The archons are parasitic entities which are intelligence-driven mind predators. They exist on multiple dimensions, able to slip from one dimension to another. Within the lower frequencies of the 6th through to 1st dimensions. They do not solely exist on the 3rd dimension, though they can directly affect our reality, often unseen. They have infected all life forms in our galaxy to one degree or another. They are mind entities and operate on frequencies which affect the mind matrix of all beings in the galaxy. They can be thought of as intelligent, mind predatory entities. They do not have a form as such, but for those who have seen them manifest in 4th dimensional bodies, they often appear as black slug-like entities. They are a cloudy black mass of energy which moves in slithering movements which resemble large snake-like slugs. Healers and mediums are reporting seeing black slimy slug-like beings hanging around the homes of those who are having problems with astral entities, ghosts, and the deceased. The snake-like slug beings are also seen attached to people's auric fields, inserting their tendrils into the chakra points, feeding off the person's energy body. Just as leeches were used in medieval times to cleanse the blood, these black leeches are feeding off the life force of an infected person. The host planets to these beings are within the constellation of Orion. This system is not their original home, but it is one of the many systems which these beings have taken over and made into their host worlds. These archontic parasites inhabit hollowed-out cave systems within planets, which they then inhabit to produce their offspring. In the center of the planet there is one large hydra-like being whose tendrils pass through all the labyrinth cave systems, feeding upon the negative fear energies created by humanoid beings imprisoned there. The beings feed upon lower fear frequencies, which they stimulate into being through mental torture. Humanoid beings from other systems in our galaxy have been captured by possessed reptilian and gray forces and are now held prisoner within the caves of these host worlds. Humanoid beings have the ability to create an emotional, energetic food which these archons feed upon. The archons prefer the negative, dark, polarized energetic food which humans create when they are in intense fear and a constant state of anxiety. Once these archontic parasites have developed to a certain level, they have the ability to project themselves into other dimensions. Like a writhing mass of slithering black snake-like slugs, they move into and through the lower levels. They search for beings with minds which can be directly affected to stimulate and create low frequencies emotional nourishment for them to feed off. These parasitic beings influence humanoid beings to live in the illusion of separation. Fear, darkness, isolation, pain, suffering, and torture. Beings in these states create certain brain waves which then cause a reaction within the emotional bodies, which the archons then feed upon. The archons are totally cut off from the nourishing light and love of the Creator, the universal dreamer. They are so cut off from the light and love they need to feed off the energies created by other beings in order to survive. The archons cannot create reality for themselves. They have long since severed their connection with the love and light of the universal dreamer and therefore no longer have the ability to create. The ability to create comes directly from the creator of this universe. The archons no longer have this ability and therefore can only copy the inspired thought of other lower dimensional beings. They inhabit beings existing on the lower levels and cause them to use their divine inherited creative ability to create realities which run along the designs of the archontic agenda. These realities are especially dark and controlling, as it is within these kinds of realities beings are so easily led. The further into dark realities a being falls, the easier it is controlled and possessed by one of these parasitic archontic entities. They are especially tricky beings as they have the ability to slip in between dimensions within the lower levels. They can mimic and shape-shift into other forms, therefore deceiving beings into accepting their influence. Healers working on various dimensions have reported that these beings can operate on several levels at once and are intelligent enough to pass from one to another, often undetected. Often when we are battling demonic, often reptilian forces, we are not only battling actual reptilian beings existing on the fourth dimension, but we are also battling against an archontic parasite which has possessed the reptilian being and is influencing its mind and behavior. The archons have created a distortion within the mind matrix of our galaxy, and all beings operating in the lower levels within are under their influence to one degree or another. However, some are more genetically predisposed to being possessed by an archontic parasite than others. The reptilian genetic makeup, which creates a reptilian mind matrix, is easily infiltrated by these archontic parasites. Many of the wars fought in our galaxy in past and present eons were first triggered and then nurtured into being by the archontic mind predators. The galactic wars created immense pain for the galaxy and all beings which lived within it. The victims of these wars created massive amounts of emotional, energetic food for the swarming snake-like parasites. These negative energies not only nourished the archons, it also caused them to increase in numbers. Our whole galaxy is now infected. There are of course beings in the galaxy that operate on the higher levels who are not under the influence of these archontic entities. However, many of the races of negatively orientated beings within our galaxy, now affecting Earth and humanity, are directly possessed by these archons. The archontic infection is very difficult to diagnose as these entities are incredibly tricky and have the ability to directly affect our mind and can talk with a voice and words that you think are your own. These beings have the ability to look into the subconscious mind and use the language it finds there to communicate with the conscious mind, putting it directly under its influence. It is possible to be completely possessed by these archontic parasites without having an idea of the infection. Someone who is possessed by these archons has chakra infections, the infestation orientates in one or more of the chakras. The solar plexus, which seems especially prone to infection, is often completely infested and controlled by these archontic parasites. From within the chakra, the archon feeds off the energy of the chakra, causing it to distort and go off balance, thus sending the entire system into imbalance, which only opens it up to more parasitic infection. Most people are only infected in one chakra, though there are also people who are fully possessed. Often they are in positions of power upon the earth. Many of the atrocities acted out upon the world stage are archontic agendas in play. Have you ever wondered where those negative thoughts come from? You know, that voice in your head which always puts you down, or puts others down, causes you to judge yourself and others. Have you ever wondered why your negative thoughts are so much easier to think than those of a positive nature? Have you wondered why those negative thoughts trigger fear and worry, especially in your solar plexus, and how these feelings create heaviness in the body, which is so debilitating? This is a sign of archontic infection. Light workers are reporting being under archontic attack. It seems that the archons have moved on in their agenda and are now actively attacking light workers on the planet. They cause light workers to fall in consciousness. The archons can stir up old unresolved issues. If for some reason the archons cannot infect the light worker, they will manipulate another to act out this archontic agenda. Many light workers are reporting people blaming them for things they have not done, and other people are projecting their issues onto them. This can cause major confusion and distress for the light worker, as they have to defend themselves from the accusations which come from the projection of the other person. The archons will choose people who are the closest to you to steer you off your path. Often those people who you feel the closest to, the person you feel is part of your soul family, and the person you would never imagine would want to hurt you, suddenly turns on you for no real rational reason. Often when the damage is done, the archontic parasite will pass into another dimension, and the person who has fallen under its possession has no memory of the blame game they had been influenced to play. It is important to remember that the person blaming and judging you is under the influence of the archontic parasite. It is possible that the archons will also possess many people around you, making you think the problem must lie with you, as so many more people are turning against you. If the archon parasite can isolate the light worker from its fellow friends and family, then their work is successful. The higher up the ladder you climb, the more work you do on yourself, the lighter you become, the more open to this archontic attack you are prone. It is like moths to the flame. The archons can pick you out from the sea of the collective consciousness and can send their tendrils to attack you, either directly through your own thoughts or through the negative thoughts of another. They can directly influence another person to attack you. Many light workers are under heavy attack from others right now, from people they once considered to be their close friends or even other fellow light workers. Division causes blame, anger and fear, which is delicious food to the archontic parasites. It is as if mankind are infected by an evil disease. People are acting out of character, and even your loved ones can become infected and act out an archontic agenda. How do they infect? From within the solar plexus, the archontic entity begins to control the lower mind, the rational mind. It does not dwell in the conscious mind, but burrows itself into the subconscious. From the place of the subconscious, it can trigger issues, unresolved trauma, and negative mind patterns which are damaging to both the host and all those around them. The archontic parasite can influence all the thoughts of the host, and the host has no awareness that these thoughts are not their own and they are under the influence of an entity, and will instead blame all around them. I often see those who are hosts to these parasites accuse other people for things they are doing themselves. They will blame other people for negative emotions, thoughts, and opinions they actually hold themselves. They are caught in a mirroring game which they cannot get out of. When you interact with a person who is under an intense archontic episode, you will notice that they think everyone around them are operating in their egos and have negative intentions. They will throw out accusations which surprise those they accuse. They cannot see past their own projections and thus think everyone but they are at fault. It can become very tricky as this archontic episode can affect others around them. It can become infectious. Those people around them who have issues which are similar going on within their egos will also become triggered, and they then are open in those moments of judgment to becoming infected by the Archon parasite themselves. Once the archontic parasite had gained enough food from the negative emotions, it will pass back into the subconscious and remain hidden. The hosted person will go from acting mean 1 minute to having no awareness of what has just occurred. It is not clean-cut. It is hard to stay objective whilst in an archontic drama. It is easy to be pulled into the drama yourself. Once in the disempowering influence of your ego, you are food for their game. The archonic grid is what souls pass through when they incarnate here. It's what wipes our memories. This barrier not only traps souls in false matrix and incarnation cycle, it also perverts and distorts access to the true soul records. Since the galactic alignment of 2012, the Galactic Center has been pulsing highly charged streams of energy into our local space, and this is causing holes to appear in this barrier, and therefore more information is getting through. The effect of passing through the barrier was known to us before we came to Earth. We had been briefed on its influence, but until we actually experienced it firsthand, we could not have prepared ourselves for such an experience. The reason is because it puts you into an artificial level of consciousness as you pass through the barrier or filter. It acts as a filter, filtering out important information and energy about who you are on the higher levels, and important information which may help the planet and raise our collective consciousness. It locks us into the left brain hemisphere, the rational mind. Within the rational mind or left hemisphere, there are encoded belief systems which get downloaded automatically into it as we pass through the barrier. The only problem with blasting holes in an archonic net is the net is somehow aware of you and can be alerted to the presence of a person who is retrieving soul records, raising its frequency, or becoming a danger to the archonic agenda. There are automatic alarm systems, if you like, within our matrix. The Melchizedeks are the genetic hosting race of the Earth's ascension cycle for the last 35,000 years. They were to help the Earth heal and evolve out from the lower dimensions of the matrix. This is also awakening new levels of memory recovery to identify factions that have historically and are currently working against humanity and the ascension process. We are looking at who these factions are behind current attempts to hijack collective awakening, as well as the weaknesses they play on. As the veils that hide the NAA, negative alien agenda, are getting thinner, many of us are recalling pieces of our true history, while simultaneously activating more aspects of our original blueprints and consciousness coding. Many of us on the Earth during the ascension cycle will give testimony from our consciousness experiences to show direct evidence in the tribunals held against those in the NAA groups that have sought to maintain a consciousness prison on the Earth, while targeting the starseeds and awakening population with many aggressive forms of covert technological warfare and dark entity harassment. This has elevated the tragic events of the fallen and the related historical timelines of the Thothian entities, Thothian Anunnaki races of a negative alignment. Satanic/Luciferian, specifically involved in the covert conspiracy against humanity to carry out the Luciferian covenant. During the time of Atlantis made a secret pact called the Luciferian Covenant for the purpose of the total annihilation of the historical timelines and cellular memories of humanity, to wipe out all records of highly technological human civilizations that were naturally evolving and advancing human consciousness and authentic human culture. The eradication of all of the technology, memories, histories, and identities during the advanced civilization of the Atlantean colonies on the Earth is a conspiracy enacted through a blood covenant made with the Illuminati hybrid humans that make up the power elite and answer to the Thothian Luciferian groups, as the darkness comes into the light, as we are now seeing. Thothi and Luciferian groups are ramping up technological mind control, psycho-emotional warfare, and controlled opposition to another whole level of deception, aggression, and tyranny, and will continue, as the immense pressure of these conflicts are amplifying behind the scenes. Dark versus false, light, duality of the demiurge when it became clear that there was no way to stop the planetary ascension and awakening of humanity that would begin in early 2000, more friendly enemy deals were made. There has been a specific space task force assembled by Thothi and Luciferians and the members of the Galactic Federation. The Galactic Federation is an ET group used to derail spiritual awakening people and root them into the negative New Age movement and their respective mind control-based belief systems that make them compliant for subjugation. Many popular spiritual energy healing systems have been infiltrated by the Galactic Federation in order to track and tag participants for astral implants in the New Age population. The New Age movement, which includes channeling an assortment of supposed ascended masters, is primarily dominated by the Luciferian Sirius A groups using the affiliation with the Galactic Federation and Ashta Command groups. To fully control the information given to the awakening population, for the purpose of complete takeover of the New Age, Ascension, and Disclosure movement. Stay away from any healer who works with or channels Ashta Command, Galactic Federation, Ascended Masters, and Archangels. They do not know what they are really doing. A comprehensive multiple-pronged militarized approach was organized in order to gather and collect all of the technological and human resources that would be necessary to build an extensive artificial neurological network with silent sound technology. This would be used to target starseeds and indigos, as well as control all transmissions of channeled material that would be sent to the awakening population in the guise of friendly ETs, ascended masters, and even deceased famous figures in human history. This allowed the Thothian groups to expand their resources towards directly targeting awakening starseeds and indigos, as well as begin to infiltrate and hijack the growing New Age movement. In order to capture and control the widest possible spectrum of souls, the corrupt demiurge split its agents into two seemingly opposing teams, dark versus false, light. Not everyone can be a saint, so there must be room for sinners within the demiurge, as long as everyone involved is under its spell. What matters most to the demiurge is that we worship it or one of its agents, regardless if they are on the light team or the dark team. There are many names of the players within this cosmic, multi-dimensional drama that you will have no doubt heard of, such as Lucifer, Jehovah, Beelzebub, Archangel Michael, Satan, different than Lucifer, Ashta, dozens of angels, supposedly ascended masters, and various other channeled entities. While some of these beings play for Team Dark, and some play for Team False, Light, they are all ultimately playing for the corrupt demiurge that controls them. This, in essence, is the big secret of the Archons, reptilian and draconian races together with negative AI. They are not just the evil, demonic beings but also those who pretend to be angels and ascended masters. Additionally, false fronts and assorted websites were created for various popular ascended masters to manipulate and control the information that was being given about the ascension cycle and to hide the true histories with non-terrestrial entities among the awakening Earth population. This is how I received the implant I'm currently trying to remove, through the false fronts installed as operations for astral tagging and tracking in the New Age movement. Intelligence data streams were manipulated to specifically attract indigos for astral tracking by these Thothian groups. There was and is an ongoing campaign specifically targeting Indigo 3s, in which the unintegrated shadow self and the hybrid aspects could be more easily bound for attachments, possession, and astral rape by these controlling entities. One of the most popular false front operations gaining prominence in the mid-2000s and ongoing was to direct artificial intelligence data streams from a fake Archangel Michael to assorted channelers in the New Age movement, and blast these transmissions at high volume on the internet. This is used for transmitting disinformation to mislead the public, or small nuggets of truth laced with poisonous lies to damage discernment. This was intentionally directed to indigos and starseeds with the attempt to derail their continued awakening, and eventually track them for body snatch or dark portal possession, when that human soul is under the guise of being communicated with by Archangel Michael. What is the point of all this control? For these organized groups that serve the Thothi and Luciferian, Galactic Federation, and related negative alien agendas, the most important goal was to ensure that the majority of the Earth humans would not awaken to realize that they were in a consciousness prison. Thus, it was very important to relay information that would divert people away from remembering what had truly happened to them, and how they ended up in the mind control prison. The corrupt demiurge is a system of artificially induced separation consciousness that is slowly dying, and it depends on harvesting the energy from the souls incarnated within its system in order to preserve its existence. In order to harvest the largest amount of soul energy possible, it created the dark-light duality paradigm to ensure that every being incarnated on a world that is under its spell would serve as a soul battery to help keep the demiurge energized. The good souls would seek out the false light team, and the bad souls would seek out the dark team, but unknown to most of those souls, they are all serving the same system. Like the two-party political system, Republicans versus Democrats, when they all serve the same people, in order to keep the duality game interesting for its participants, the demiurge set up densities of existence that initiates on the dark and light paths could ascend through. This gives the beings moving through these densities a feeling of accomplishment, when in fact they are navigating through a labyrinth of illusion. The players at the higher levels of the hierarchies know that they are in a self-serving system, but they are fine with the deal, because they get to wield power and receive the energy of worship from beings further down the ladder. What about the spiritual hierarchy? As the platinum ray, crystalline energies, and higher frequency transmissions were streaming into the planetary grid network, simultaneously the Thoth group enlisted the support of the Galactic Federation crew to oversee the entire New Age channeling movement, in which transmissions were intercepted and infiltrated as faux greeting teams from supposedly friendly ETs. Most channeled beings will claim to be affiliated with the false, light-based spiritual hierarchy, which includes archangels, ascended masters, and positive ETs. These channeled messages are a dime a thousand, and more keep pouring out every day. The dirty little secret is that these beings are beholden to the corrupt demiurge, and are waging a psychological battle on people that don't want to be associated with any formal religious structure. Another one of their secrets is that most of the so-called ascended masters in their hierarchy never had a human incarnation. These are incredibly deceptive beings that are playing a game in order to garner the energy of worship. In the real universe of non-deception, nobody would worship them, but in the illusory sub-universe of the Matrix, they are able to trick good-hearted people into pouring energies of love, devotion, and praise into them. As for the angels, they are in more or less the same category. They are not aligned with the infinite source of all creation, but rather they serve a lesser being posing as the creator, the corrupt demiurge/solar logos. Therefore, they are not what I would call angels at all. Actual ascended masters, archangels, DO, exist. However, it is rare to come into contact with them. This is why everyone must vet every single entity they come into contact with. Always ask them if they are a benevolent being of the true divine light. They must answer. 98% of the time, they become hostile or disappear. If you are lucky enough to come into contact with a being of the true light, continue to vet them every time. The negative agenda knows when you let your guard down. The dark side makes the false light look good. The two teams have to play their parts convincingly, and the dark team has really embraced their role as villainous scum ready to kill, rape, torture, and do any sort of depraved thing that they can get away with. The dark side is designed to be incredibly repugnant so that the majority of good souls will run to the other end of polarity, right into the loving embrace of one of the false light's manipulated religions, or to their new age religion with its legion of channels and masters. Earth has been a difficult planet for the negative agenda to fully control. Human beings were once very aware of their connection to infinite source and all of life, and that awareness has been maintained by spiritual individuals throughout the entire reign of darkness on this planet. Because this awareness could not be beaten out of us by the dark forces, a plan was formed to co-opt the spiritual nature of human beings. First, religions were formed and imposed on as many people of the world as possible. Anyone who didn't adhere to one of the major religions was an outcast for much of history, until the last century when the Theosophist movement, teaching about God and the world based on mystical insight, was born, which set the foundation for the New Age movement to emerge in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. The New Age movement has continued to gain momentum as it has attracted many of the people who turned away from the hypocrisy of patriarchal religion. Much of the New Age teachings are based in truth, but just like any other religion or movement, teachings from ancient have been twisted and manipulated. This is why it is important to study ancient teachings. The negative agenda seems to have an easy answer for any of the inner turmoil that humans experience. If religion doesn't serve to appease an individual, then the New Age will do just fine. It's all the same to them, as long as we pick a side that it controls. This is why we need to transcend sides altogether. The passiveness program / spiritual bypassing. There are New Age teachings that will tell you to ignore anything that is negative, bad, evil, etc. This is called the passiveness program. Most people who live in denial of the existence of the darkness in its many forms are absolutely terrified to face the true and accurate facts of what is happening on the Earth during the planetary ascension cycle. The people that are the most terrified of darkness or traumatized by fears are the most prone to the New Age mind control hijack. Unresolved and buried fears necessitate forms of denial for those that are too scared to face their fears. As a result, they tend to be apathetic people easily manipulated by dark forces, with a weakened moral character and lower ethical standards in helping their fellow human, because their version of reality is selective or even delusional. Spiritual bypassing is an act of pure egoic selfishness in the guise of projecting oneself as an evolved and higher consciousness person. The profile of this person is that they ignore or downplay certain events they consider negative, in order to protect themselves from being mentally or emotionally triggered. As a result, they deny the truth or make convenient assumptions in order to rationalize the reasons that the tragic event has happened to another group of people. Usually, the blame is squarely placed on the victims, without any feelings of empathy or compassion. As an example, it can be assumed that children being used as sex slaves or for SRA, satanic ritual abuse, have karmic reasons for being killed. Therefore, they don't have to do anything about it, because they need to maintain their high vibration and all is in divine order. And while this may be true, that this is some kind of karmic debt, does this mean we shouldn't try and stop this from happening? Hell no. We came here to try and change the world, and this is part of it. Light workers are being thoroughly used. There is a massive effort underway by beings that I now call divine agents to completely obliterate the negative agenda. When that happens, all of the beings who have gained power through these agreements will lose that stolen power and will have to face up to the deceptions that they have been propagating. None of them want that to happen, so in their cleverness they devised a brilliant plan to undermine the entire effort. The plan was simple: approach all incarnated divine agents, usually in a dream state but sometimes during an ET abduction scenario, and tell them that in order to fulfill their mission, they need to work for the false light and take orders from the higher beings. This plan worked amazingly well, largely because divine agents have had a hard time living on Earth. Societies here are badly warped, spirituality is twisted and abused, the vibrational density is heavy, our memories are mostly wiped, and we generally would rather not be here. So any being that emanated light, even false light, and love could make a divine agent feel like they were making valid contact with truly divine beings. There is only one way for genuine spiritual ascension, and that is a direct line from you to Source/Infinite Creator. There is no need whatsoever to have to go through a third party like archangels or ascended masters or gods. Go straight to the source yourself. Ever wake up more tired than when you went to sleep? Many divine surrogates who were recruited as light workers report that they wake up more tired than when they went to bed, and their dreams were full of battles. During these dream missions, the false light squeezes those they control of as much energy as they can. You may wake up with memories of having gone on missions to battle the dark, but the end result is that your body, mind and soul are depleted of energy which was harvested by the false light beings. A few months ago I revoked all agreements made with any and all beings that did not have my best interests in mind, no matter who the beings were or claimed to be. You should do this as well. It sounds like such a simple thing, but somehow I had overlooked it. During the process, I felt resistance from beings who were claiming to be positive, but I stood strong and told them that I refused to be manipulated into giving energy to the demiurge. This has given me the distinct privilege of being targeted by both the dark team and the false light team. The false light team does indeed engage in psychic warfare, just in different, more subtle ways than their dark brethren. Deflecting these attacks has been worth it because I know that I am more aligned with my true mission to put an end to the demiurge without being sidetracked into duality battles. New Age astral bliss. One of the most appealing ways the Thothian groups have found to manipulate the New Age is to promote the states of astral bliss through the slick marketing of spiritual consumerism, which many people line up for like astral junkies to get a hit of false love transmitted from the astral plane. Implants while participating in these retreats. There is a manipulated state of astral bliss, which is a type of emotional conditioning to activate addictive response patterns, while participating with many of the New Age group modalities that are hijacked by Thothian entities. Retreats that scratch the surface and allow us to feel something, allow us to check off a box that later gets turned into, I'm beyond all that shadow because I've dealt with that already. Thus, the setup is to ignore red flags and emotional weakness in everyday life, because the fear of actually facing deeper issues and having to make changes in one's lifestyle is too overwhelming. Spiritual development is about getting the negative ego out of the driver's seat and being open and willing to feel the changes that need to actually happen, while being honest with ourselves. If we are really being honest, we may know we need to change, but we will be faced with a test of self-responsibility. In the consumer spiritual market, we can transfer that responsibility onto something else and pretend that we are actually doing something spiritual because we paid for a product or listened to a guru type that promised awakening. New Age astral bliss narratives are filled with fantastical illusions, wishful and magical thinking, self-deception, and escapist fantasies of the rainbows and butterflies outlook on life that appear to be like a Disney movie. Many times, severely emotionally wounded people are led into the New Age, where they are not interested in healing themselves or taking responsibility for their behaviors. They seek instead further excuses to continue negative behaviors and being deceptive to others in an accepted social setting. To have better discernment, the most common New Age astral bliss profiles may include demonstrated qualities such as complacency, carelessness, demonstrating a lack of responsibility and cluelessness towards others. Easily mentally confused and overwhelmed, vacant eyes and expression, incoherent and fractured communication. Drugs like ecstasy, euphoria to sedative state when in astral frequency transmissions from guru, addictive tendencies to recreate the astral bliss-filled state over and over again, projected spiritual fantasies on others, accusing others of being dark, prone to emotional tantrums, acts as the chaos disruptor, ungrounded in body, therefore prone to self-delusions, naive with poor decision-making, may be prone to emotional hysteria and archetypes of drama, rolling around on the ground crying, screaming, going into primal or fetal states when in groups, lack of discernment in environmental energies, places trust in untrustworthy people and highly corrupted organizations, auric disconnections in one or more layers, i.e. body and heart disconnected, no boundaries and open to whatever may come in the astral, covered with energy parasites. Rejects existence of pain and fear when confronted by it, cannot tell dark from light, says everyone is one and so they can take whatever you have, because it's theirs already, tends to lack discipline or self-responsibility, may confuse drug-like states and addictive states with higher consciousness state, re-traumatizes wounds and fragments through drug use in shamanic journeying, holier than thou with prideful self-importance, declares they are on a spiritual mission and that gives them permission to treat others badly. Hedonistic or bohemian personality, a total sensualist nature, following the highest excitement. Alien implanted, unaware of the existence of implants, mind control, or negative ego. Unwilling to confront or face negativity or bad behaviors for fear of being labeled judgmental, low ethical behavior, holds grudges, easily puts down others and engages in malicious gossip, solutions for the duality afflicted. So how does a person get out of this duality paradigm? The first step is to engage the self-clearing system protocols and revoke all agreements that you have made with any beings that don't have your best interests in mind. Next, revoke all agreements to see reality in polarized terms. Every time you revoke agreements, be sure to reclaim your energy that had gone into them. Then affirm your commitment to transcend the control paradigms of the corrupt demiurge without being sidetracked by pointless polarity battles. I also recommend a brief daily practice of revoking all agreements to experience hardship, limitation, bad relationships, health problems, financial problems, family dysfunctions, and anything else in your life that is energy draining. The number and quantity of agreements that we have unconsciously taken on within this false reality matrix are truly astounding. When you pay attention to the subtle and blatant agreements that point to the invisible bars of your prison, you will indeed find that there is no shortage of agreements to be revoked. After you have engaged this process, you may notice less contact from the false light beings, and you might feel a little lonely until you get used to the changes. This is a very good time to strengthen your connection to your own higher self, the core of Earth and the galactic core. As you adjust, you may notice better sleep and a sense that you can see through deceptions disguised with positivity more easily. If you do get contact from a being, you can tell it that you are only willing to communicate with beings who have transcended duality and are outside of the corrupt demiurge. Put any being trying to contact you to the test. Question them point blank, are you part of the demiurge? The beings of true divine light who exist outside of the demiurge, in the real universe will happily answer your questions. Just be aware that they don't speak in language the same way that we do, as they communicate with soul telepathy. Type of communication is a major indicator. The forces of true divine light that exist outside of the corrupt demiurge are not bound by the left brain right brain dynamics and dark light polarities that define the demiurgic subuniverse. This means that they do not sound like a voice in your head. Instead, they use soul telepathy to emanate feelings, archetypal expressions, and an extremely pure quality of light that speaks directly to your soul. The difference between a being of true divine light and one of the false light beings is that the former's light is warm, enveloping, pure and unconditionally loving, whereas the latter's light is cool, piercing in an uncomfortable way, dominant and often overly masculine. The negative agenda is a male-dominated group, and even the females within their power structure have a very masculine energy. This male domination is, of course, why the religious structures enabled all have a domineering male god, and no mention of an all-encompassing, feminine creator, Another major difference between false light beings within the demiurge and beings of true divine light who are aligned with infinite source is that the divine light is not controlling, manipulative, bossy, or judgmental in any way. Infinite source will not impose an agenda upon you, although it will support you in your chosen mission to help dismantle the corrupt demiurge. You won't be given marching orders by infinite source or beings of true divine light who operate outside of the demiurge. They won't send you on endless, energy-draining missions in your dream time, and they won't ask you to do something that will result in loss of your soul energy. The beings of true divine light are supportive, loving, nurturing, and they care about you as an individual. You are not just a cog in a machine to them, for they understand that you are a vitally important aspect of an intricately interconnected creation. They have the utmost respect for those of us who volunteered to incarnate into the beast system of the corrupt demiurge in order to help dismantle it from the inside. Indeed, there must be divine agents working both from within and outside of the corrupt demiurge in order to dismantle it. Discernment is vital. I urge you to drastically increase skepticism and fine-tune your discernment. Apply your intuition and logic to information that you receive. And ask yourself, what is the agenda here? There is indeed a very large, multidimensional conspiracy at work on this planet, and it draws power from us by pushing us into one spectrum of polarity or another. Anyone urging you to choose a side simply hasn't woken up to the fact that both sides are two halves of the same coin that is controlled by the corrupt demiurge. You can see a great deal of people leaving the American political parties and opting for non-party or middle of the road. These are people that have awakened. I urge you to discuss these ideas with those close to you and look for ways that you may have been manipulated by the false light in the past. It's nothing to be ashamed of. The false light beings are amazingly skilled liars and manipulators. Most of you reading this have already chosen to be a divine agent and incarnate for the purpose of dismantling the demiurgic control system. You have already made your choice, and now you need to carry out your individual mission. In order to do that, it is vitally important to sever all ties with the false light, take some time to regain energy and strength if necessary, and ask your divine inner self to reveal to you what it is that you specifically need to do. Stand strong in the true light of your divine inner self and infinite source.